the presumptive victory of Ferdinand Marcos Sr. and Sara Duterte. Our panel of speakers include Mr. Ago Pedalizo from Filipino American Human Rights Alliance, Ms. Marisa Corpus from Malaya Movement Canada and Coalition Contra Daya Canada, Mr. Ives Nibunco from Malaya Movement USA, Ms. Nerissa Aligretti from Isambayan, and Ms. Loida Lewis from US Filipinos for Good Governance. Before we start, we would like to go over our Zoom rules and etiquette for this press conference. Here we go. Everyone is automatically muted upon entry. Please make sure you're muted so that we won't have a lot of background noise or distraction. Also minimize your camera movements by turning off your video when not needed. Questions, suggestions must be typed in the chat box. We will try our best to get through all of them and for later in the question and answer portion. Number 4, please check in, introduce yourself. I already said that earlier. Give us your name, your location, and if you're part of any organization or if you're a member of the press, what publication or media you're representing. And we will have a 15-minute Q&A period. Please know that this meeting is being recorded and also being live streamed to several platforms. Now that we got that out of the way, let me give the floor to one of our first speakers. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ago Pedalizo to begin our manifesto.
Okay. Salamat, Laura. Magandang umaga po mga kababayan. Salamat po sa ganitong pagkakataon. No? Babasahin ko po yung manifesto namin. Pero babanggitin ko lang po, kung titingnan niyo yung panimula ng Noli Me Tangere, ang nakasulat doon, sa panahon ng kadiliman, hindi lahat ay natutulog. Manifesto of Filipinos of North America on the recently conducted Philippine elections. We, the undersigned migrants and overseas Filipinos from the United States and Canada, are one in rejecting Marcos and Duterte. We believe that their presumptive victory in the recently conducted elections is based on lies, disinformation, and fraud. We reject Marcos and Duterte for they represent tyranny and the worst of traditional and dynastic politics in the Philippines. The Filipino people voted last May 9, and they deserve to know the real results of the Philippine elections. We are alarmed at the reported massive vote buying and defective vote counting machines. In the US, delayed and damaged ballots, late and lack of information dissemination, and over 13,000 ballots returned to senders disenfranchised many overseas registered voters. Lastly, we call into question the unbelievably rapid publicizing of election results from the COMELEC transparency servers. This makes us believe that the machines were pre-programmed to manufacture results favorable to Marcos Jr. and Duterte.
With all COMELEC commissioners appointed by Duterte and the chairman himself, a Marcos Jr. lawyer, election logistics contracts being given to top Duterte crony Dennis Uy and Senator Amy Marcos chairing the Senate Committee on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation, the impartiality of the recent elections is questionable to begin with. These, on top of systematic fake news, weaponization of social media, such as Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook and Meta, funded by the Marcos Duterte tandem in the last 6 years, have proven that once again, the will and constitutional right of the people can be subverted and destroyed by those who wield money and power. We demand immediate and independent investigation of the massive irregularities and electoral violations that have cast doubt in the credibility of the elections. In the meantime, we call on the opposition not to concede.
We also express our disagreement and extreme disappointment of the congratulatory statement of US President Joseph Biden. We believe that this is premature and is preemptive of the ongoing verification of election results. We can't bow down to questionable electoral results much less dance with dictators and criminals like Ferdinand Marcos Jr., whose father, on the record, plundered billions and killed thousands of innocent lives. For the elections to be legitimate, we also demand to allow the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, Legal Network for Truthful Elections, and the National Movement for Free Elections to collate, encode, and canvass individual ballots and ballot receipts without threat or any level of impediments, without COMELEC's choice of which precincts and VCMs to audit. We demand that the PPCRV, Lente, and NAMFREL be given ample time to independently perform their function and produce authentic results. No matter the result of the independent investigation, as Filipinos and peace-loving global citizens, we still hold the Marcos family, including Marcos Jr., accountable for the $10 billion plunder, the 203 billion peso cumulative unpaid estate taxes, unpaid income taxes, and massive torture, disappearances, and political imprisonment during martial law. We also hold Duterte accountable for his crimes against humanity, with the 35,000 extrajudicial killings of innocent lives. Indeed, we bear witness to the most notorious combination of these oligarchs in Philippine history.
We are grieving, but we shall not concede. We shall go back to the communities that we had initial encounters to continue the conversations on poverty, corruption, and people's empowerment. The poor majority have always been the victims of traditional politicians, but they have the power to liberate themselves as well. We hold dear to our hearts the values of transparency, honesty, freedom, and democracy for our compatriots in the Philippines. Many people have been awakened by the campaign led by Vice President Leni Robredo and Senator Kiko Pangilinan. Ang namulat, hindi na muling pipikit. The awakened will no longer slumber. The struggle goes beyond elections. We shall fight back to restore democracy in our motherland.
Our call to action. Number 1, we call on the US and Canadian government to suspend provision of all security assistance to the Philippines until the human rights situation has improved and human rights violators are investigated and held accountable. Number 2, we call on the US and Canadian government to employ targeted sanctions via the Magnitsky Act against human rights violations in the Philippines, including but not limited to President Rodrigo Duterte, the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, and others. Number 3, we call on the US government to uphold the $353 million contempt order against presumptive President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Number 4, we call on the Philippine government for the immediate and unconditional release of jailed Senator Leila de Lima following the recantation of the testimonies of 3 key witnesses. Number 5, we call on the Philippine government to pursue the case against Duterte's crony, Dennis Uy's illegal purchase of the Malampaya gas field, which has a net income of $1 million a day, and which provides for the fifth of the energy needs of the country, and give the right of first refusal to the Philippine National Oil Company, the PNOC. Number 6, we call on the Filipino people to remain steadfast and vigilant against attempts to trample on our democratic, constitutional, and human rights. Number 7, last but not least, we call on COMELEC to conduct a manual recount and demand that the PPCRV, Lente, and NAMFREL be given ample time to independently perform their functions. So finally, to produce authentic results of the election. Salamat po. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ago, Ms. Marissa, Mr. Ives, Ms. Nerissa, and Ms. Loida. To everyone here, and I see a lot of you just entered. If you'd like to read the United Manifesto, we can put the link in the chat. If one of us could do that, that would be great. Now, the next 15 minutes will be utilized for question and answer. Members of the press, feel free to ask your questions in the chat, and we will try our best to answer as much as we can in the time that we have. It would also be very helpful for us if you could mention the publication or media that you are working for when you ask your questions. Do we have any questions so far? Okay, let me see. All right, we have, it's not really so much question, but this is from Mr. Eligio Abellera. I totally understand the frustration, but the speakers have not cited a single evidence of fraud. Why aren't all these concerns addressed before the election? Who would like to answer that? Yes, Mr. Ago, go ahead.
Well, why before the election? Kailangan mangyari para magkaroon ng tangible results, di ba? And unang-una sasagutin ko yan, pero unang-una, the primary duty na magkaroon ng ganitong pagpapaliwanag at ebidensya, trabaho yan ng COMELEC. Hanggang ngayon, yung maraming tanong na hindi nila sinasagot. I-mention ko na lang. 240 electoral results should jibe with the SD cards, with the VCMs, with the precincts, with the transparency servers. Hindi nagtutugba yun, open question pa yun sa COMELEC. May question din sa system hash. Ibig sabihin, ang codification hindi nagtutugma. Pag mali ang codification, hindi tama ang pag-transmit ng mga information. Nireport rin ng Contradaya at least 13,000 return to senders. Ibig sabihin yung mga balota bumalik sa mga manggagawa. Of course, yung mga OFW, workers kami, wala kaming time mag-react. Essentially, na-disenfranchise sila. Insufficient stamps. Yung mga poll workers, essentially, they were not given to have a full watch of the whole processing. Yung mga VCMs, maraming mga technical errors. But note that this is within the context ng massive vote buying and chronic, almost more than 10 years of lies, fraud, and disinformation within the social media. So given this scenario, paano nyo kami paniniwalaan na naging malinis ang eleksyon? Binibigyan namin ng pahayag na ito para ito maging kwento. Otherwise, sisingilin kami ng mga anak namin. Kailangan magkaroon ng isang kwento batay sa katotohanan. And number two, kaya nagkakaroon ng isang manifesto, ibig sabihin, may isang kilusan ng mga tao nakikilos beyond elections.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Tito Ago. Okay, another question. This is from LG. Oh, Ms. Lara Gregory. Are Lenny and Kiko filing electoral protests? Do we have any knowledge about that? Are Lenny and Kiko filing electoral protests?
Not that we know of, but we know that there has been a TRO, temporary restraining order, filed before the Supreme Court by several concerned citizens in Manila to stop stop any declaration or from the COMELEC of declaring president and vice president. So that is before the Supreme Court.
I think based also on their last speeches during the Thanksgiving program that they had in Ateneo, I think Kiko did mention that their lawyers are looking into it, but as of yet, they have not released a statement. Next question. Okay, this is from Lota Bertulfo. Why call to action number 1, considering the security threat posed by China?
Well, that's true. We do not want the US and Canadian arms to be used against our own people as they have done in bombing Marawi, which were coming from helicopters and bombs coming from our, the foreign aid. But I will say that for coast guards to protect our fishermen from the intrusion of China on our West Philippine Sea, that at least should be given, but no arms, because they will be used against our own people.
Thank you, Tita Loida. Next question. What do you wish to ultimately achieve in launching this manifesto? Anyone could answer.
I would like to answer
Sabi ko
that.
kanina,
Oh,
Okay.
gusto namin magkaroon ng isang naratibo. Isang naratibo na batay sa katotohanan. Otherwise, kung hindi namin sasabihin to, sinasabi na ng kabila na, hey, nanalo kami 31 million. Yun, everyday nila sinasabi yun amidst threats and fears, no, ng tao. So, doon nade-demobilize yung tao. Di ba? Natatakot, tapos pinapalamon sila ng kwentong mali. Ikalawa, the fact na may pahayag ito at may call to actions kami, ibig sabihin, a new movement is coming up, lumalakas. Ibig sabihin, hindi namin basta tatanggapin ang kwentong mali. At the fact na nagkakaisa na lahat ngayon, ibig sabihin lang ito, may natutunan kami at handa kaming lumaban. And this is a movement beyond Lenny. Kung sasama si Lenny, mas maganda. Pero ang malaga rito, ang kilusan ay nanggagaling mismo sa baba. This is sustainable, this is widespread, and we want this to be a global effort.
also like to give the floor to Miss Nerissa. She was about to say something. Go ahead, Miss Nerissa.
Gusto ko lang susugan si Ago. We have the same point in also that we are building a movement here. This is a fighting back and a resistance to the comeback of these two big dynasties, especially the Marcos family. So especially me, a Marshalo baby, and growing up in Mindanao, we can't have that kind of situation again. So we need to build this movement. That's all.
So I am calling on everyone who is here, or almost 148, to attach your name to I think we have already 94 names to this manifesto. Attach your name to that so that people will see that we will not stand quiet on the fraud and distorted history and the continuation of wasting our people's wealth on their own celebration, even now, before they are even declared winners or declared president, vice president. They're already spending on 5,000 hotel rooms, 500 bottle of wine. Umpisa na ang pagdarambong ng ating mga kalaban.
Yves has something to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to add, and on our end, no, we recognize yung challenges sa Pilipinas, no, yung ongoing cases of red tagging, harassment, even extrajudicial killings of activists and human rights defenders. We know how hard it is to speak out, no, sa Pilipinas. So we are taking this opportunity as overseas Filipinos because we believe that it is our duty to stand up for our democracy in the Philippines, to stand up for the rights of our kababayans in the Philippines. That is why we're putting this manifesto out, no, to raise the alarm, no. I think the manifesto reflects the sentiments of many of our kababayans, both in the Philippines and in the diaspora, no. That is why we're offering this to you, and like what Tita Loida have said, we are calling on our kababayans to join forces. Let's unite and take action and reject the Marcos and Duterte regime.
Thank you, Yves. I'm going to skip ahead with a member of the press who asked us a question. This is Casey Belmonte from Philippine Star. Despite all the issues encountered during the elections, COMELEC and foreign service posts, including those in Canada and San Francisco, logged record high voter turnouts. May we get your comment on this? We actually do have someone from Canada and we have someone from San Francisco in our panel. So we could start with Canada. Yeah, Miss Marissa, go ahead. You're muted.
That's correct. The voter turnout was 35% of the registered voters, and that's very high. Now, the question is, what are the next steps? Actually, in Toronto, we have filed an electoral protest, and it is now been endorsed by There's a certification from the consul and the ambassador, and it has been endorsed to COMELEC. So the next step is with COMELEC now. So all this voter turnout, it has now, mind you, the results showed a 62% and 38% for Robredo and for BBM and Robredo. So it's in all the precincts. Isn't that strange?
Laura, someone is asking how they can attach their names to the manifesto.
There is a link. It's like a Google Doc. Yves can kindly put the link on our chat. Yeah, and you could still put your name in the manifesto if you'd like. Thank you for supporting our united statement. All right, we'll skip with some other questions here. In as much as COMELEC is under the control, this is from Ms. Lota Bertulfo. In as much as COMELEC is under the control of Duterte, is it possible to raise our concerns about anomalies to the Supreme Court?
I think it's already been done. Not the anomalies, but that the Supreme Court should now decide that Bongbong Marcos is disqualified by the election law to run for president. And they should have decided it before, but since they did not, this TRO before the Supreme Court is precisely for that issue. He should be prohibited because of a conviction, final conviction by the Philippine courts. And therefore, he should never have run, or he should have not continued his candidacy. And so that is already before the Supreme Court.
This is somewhat related to that question. This is from Bong Makalalat. Shouldn't there be a call as well to the Supreme Court to act quickly and judiciously on the cases filed resulting from the COMELEC decisions? Number one, the cancellation of BBM COC, 2 disqualification cases, and number 3, temporary restraining order for Congress to halt BBM's proclamation, etc. I think you were able to answer that, Tita Loida, right?
Yes.
Sort of? Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that?
We didn't do any more call to action because the TRO was only filed 2 days ago. And so, that's why I'm saying it now. It's before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, the people in the Philippines, in Manila, those who are very concerned about this, they should rally in front of the Supreme Court and tell them, do your job.
Mm-hmm. And from our tech support, as far as we know, Attorney Makalintal and his group are gathering evidences of electoral fraud. So that is the update on that. I'm sorry, we don't have more.
Okay, just to explain, Laura, just to explain, if the Supreme Court decides that truly Bongbong Marcos should never have run, he should be disqualified. And if he is disqualified, then the second highest vote, Leni Robredo, will be president or should be president. So that is a question. That's why the question of whoever it was who asked the question is so crucial. The Supreme Court has enough time to declare that Bongbong Marcos is not fit to run for president and therefore disqualify him.
This is a question for Ms. Linda Owalikan. VP Leni is in New York to attend her daughter's graduation. Is there a chance that she will make a statement to support this movement?
Let me answer that. Although I have made inquiries to invite her to a community meeting, I respected her decision that she wrote in her Facebook that she would like privacy with her 3 daughters because this is the first time they're going to be together since the death of Jessie Robredo. And as a friend and another widow, I respect her statement to respect her privacy. So I think she's going to keep to that.
And they also deserve some quality time after a very grueling campaign. So thank you for that question. Yves, you have something to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, and just to add, I think, of course, we would welcome any statement from Vice President Lenny, Senator Kiko, and any from the opposition with regards to our manifesto. But as mentioned earlier, this is already beyond the candidacy of VP Lenny and Senator Kiko. This is about the our Philippine democracy. No, this is the the interest and welfare of our country at stake. Yeah.
All right. I'm trying to look. There's another question from Ms. Casey Valmonte from the Philippine Star. How has widespread disinformation on social media channels affected the views of overseas/migrant Filipinos based in North America? Would you be able to provide examples on how this information has affected communities there and how it has changed their views on the Philippines? Anyone in our panel can answer.
Well, Laura,
Go ahead.
Kung gusto niyo talaga ng statistics tapos yung actual citations, may nasa website na yan, Attorney Lloyda, di ba? Nilabas na ron yung mga sites, yung mga specific na instances na nagkakaroon ng trolling, tapos nireklamo na rin namin sa Facebook. We actually went to Google to raise concerns. Sinagot nila, they're doing the best they can. Pero in general lang, nangyayari na tong trolling na to as early as 2010. Diba? As early as 2010, nire-revise muna yung martial law as if walang nangyari. Yung mga gains natin sa EDSA, parang nabaliwala. And then gradually, lumakas na lumakas and full-blown 6 years ago under Duterte. Nagkakaroon ng mga EJK habang nagkakaroon na sila ng mga conspiracy theory. Even yung concept ng Talyano Gold, di ba? Hey, pag nanalo si Marcos, babayaran kayo. Tapos may kinakalat na naman silang fake news na, hey, hindi gumastos si Marcos, actually mga sponsors niya, mga mayaman niya yan, di ba? Nag-take effect na to. Again, going back sa sinasabi ko kaninang naratibo na base sa katotohanan. If you look at the historical context ng mga nanalo sa eleksyon, mga kapatid, laging ang pagitan ng panalo, 2 to 3 million lang. Mula kay Cory, kay Fidel, kay Erap, kay Pinoy, kay Duterte. Ibig sabihin, yun ang normal trending. Mananalo ka siguro 2 million, 3 million. So paano niyo ipapaliwanag sa amin 16 million ang lamang ni Marcos? Ibig sabihin, ganun na lang ba na pipikit mata tayo na tatanggapin natin ito? Ito na yung naratibo nila. At pag tinanggap natin yan, tuloy-tuloy ang kasinungalingan. And guys, remember though, yung EJK, paano nagaganap ang patayan? Number 1, lies and fraud and disinformation. Number 2, vilification. And number 3, yung actual na patayan. The writings are on the wall. Si Sara nag-designate na ng maraming military surveillance officers sa bawat university. Anong kasunod nito? Red tagging. Anong kasunod ng red tagging? So pinapahayag namin itong manifesto na ito because things are yet to come pero naandyan na. Kaya nga itong pahayag namin, we take into accountability rin yung role ng US. Hindi namin papayagan bilang American citizens, bilang immigrants and taxpayers na yung pera namin pambili ng mga baril at ng mga armed supplies para patayin yung kababayan natin. Still, ang sinasabi namin, the Magnitsky Act, the Magnitsky Law that was enacted is saying that all military supplies, all aids are anchored on human rights.
Thank you, Tito Ago. Well, to add to that, well, since her question was about how has it affected, how has this information affected communities here in America, I personally, so to me, I categorize them in 3 different groups. There's like one that's super pro Lenny that would like help with anything, any kind of effort to like get people to go with Lenny. And then there's the super BBMs that there's nothing that you could say to change their mind. And there's also a lot of undecided that don't like Marcos because of what they did. But the disinformation that is coming from them, we all know is from Marcos's camp, is affecting their opinion of Lenny. I've personally talked to several people who are like, well, she's lutang. She's like, like they would like cite all the same things that is being put out in social media by the trolls, and she's so divisive. Why would, naninira ng tao? So I've personally seen just from my own experience how the disinformation that's put out there, although some people are vocal about their lack of vocal about how they dislike Marcos, they also can't choose Lenny because of the disinformation that's out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I just add, for those of you who have not heard, we were able to expose the trolls. And if you go to trollexposer.com, troll, EXPOSER.com, you will see the hundreds of trolls that has been identified by this firm, okay, led by Liz there, na sobra, ang dami-dami. Just one person will put it on his machine and it's distributed to 100 avenues all over the world. So continuous yun. And this has been done by our own people in the Philippines and maybe even from out of state, from another country, na constant ang false information, distorted history, talagang tunay na kasinungalingan. And sabi ito ni Goebbels during Hitler's time, kaya they were able to kill so many Jews because constant ang kabulaanan. And if you say a lie 10,000 times, it becomes truth. And that's what's happening to our Filipino, to our people, not only abroad, but lalo na sa Pilipinas.
Yeah.
So, yan ang nangyayari. We are going to be, we are raising the alarm, mga Pilipino, mga kababayan. Okay, magising kayo. Kayo ay linoloko ng gising.
Yeah. And Laura, to add, in a global context, no, this culture applies disinformation and hatred. This is the same phenomenon that actually pushed for Brexit, for the ascendancy of Trump, and definitely for Marcos and Duterte. Sinisira nila ang isang dissenting lipunan. Kaya ang binibigay namin itong manifesto na ito para sabihin sa inyo na may isang alternatibong mundo na hindi lang takutan, hindi lang bastusan, hindi lang patayan. It is possible to have a society na batay sa katotohanan, batay sa paggalang, batay sa pagmamahal, and that this government by Duterte and Marcos is not sustainable. Kaya kailangan kumilos tayo, wala na tayong aasahan, taong bayan na lang.
Thank you, Tito Ago. Let's move on to our next question. This is from Ms. Rowena Papasin from ABS-CBN TVFC News. Can the group react to the change in messaging from the Marcos camp? They are now asking everyone to give Marcos a chance. I'd like to get their reaction. Also, what is the group going to do if Robredo concedes? So let's start with that first question. Shifting of messaging. Who would like to answer that?
I'll let some other folks and then I'll come after.
Give Marcos a chance. Yes, Yves, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think that should have come way before the Philippine elections. No, ang daming debate na inimbitahan si Marcos to explain himself. He did not show up. Those are opportunities given to him, right? Maraming opportunities na hiningi ng mga martial law survivors na mag-apologize siya and to acknowledge the crimes committed by his family, and he denied, he rejected those pleas from martial law survivors, and now he's gonna ask for him to be given a chance. For us, we believe na we don't have a lot of chances for our motherland. Him getting back into power and continuing yung crimes ng kanilang pamilya. I don't know if our country will survive another Marcos in power. Kaya for me, he was given the chance and he did not take it, and for our motherland no longer has any chance. Kaya kailangan nating tumayo, tumindig at lumaban.
Yep.
Bago si Ago, masabi ko lamang, sabi nila, wala kaming ninakaw. At when the PSCGG went to the apartment of First Lady Imelda Marcos, bare yung wall. Ngayon na naging siyang kunyari magiging presidente, naroon ng Picasso, naroon ng Monet, nasa wall nila. Yun ang mga ninakaw sa atin. That's number one. Number two, hindi pa nga sila nakakalapo sa Malacanang. Anong nangyari sa archives ng Malacanang? Wala, deleted na ang time ni Marcos as martial law. Nawala na. So, sasabihin mo, give him a chance. Eto nga, hindi pa siya nade-declare. Nakikita na natin ang unti-unting paglilinlang, ang kasinungalingan na ginawa nila, continue pa rin ngayon. Sige, Ago, ikaw naman.
Thank you, Attorney Loida. The message is clear, guys. Ang message nila, Marcos, is continuity. Malinaw, continuity. Ibig sabihin, yung repression during martial law, yung EJ case, yung garapalang pagnanakaw, ipagpapatuloy nila. So tell me, sasabihin niyo ba sa akin, give me a chance? We don't expect a honeymoon. Kaya kabahan kayo. Hindi na to yung sasabihin ni Duterte, hey, give me 3 months and I'm gonna get rid of drug addictions. Give me 6 months, ilalagay ko yung flag ng Philippines sa West Philippine Sea. Wala na eh. Kasi pagpapatuloy na lang to. Kaya kung titingnan mo, ang hindi lang nakita nila Marcos, yung opposition ngayon, from the get-go, united agad. Kasi wala na naman, we cannot allow to wait at magsabi pa, manghula kami na baka magbago si Marcos. Pareho eh. Sabi nga ni Ives, there was no apology. There was no apology. For all the crimes and plundering and every evil that they've done to the community and the Filipino people, they've never apologized. Actually, mas malakas pa ang loob. So, ano masasabi natin? We cannot afford to concede nor to compromise. We will oppose at every level against this fascistic and tyrannical government.
Okay.
Malinaw po mga kaibigan. Itong kombinasyon ni Marcos at ni Duterte, this is the worst type of oligarchs in history. Hindi lang basta nagnanakaw, pumapatay pa. Garapalan ito. Pumapatay, nagnanakaw. And as we said, hindi to pwede magtagal kasi nga talagang mabubunyag naman kayo eh. Ang reminder lang namin sa taong mga kasama natin sa kakampiks, no? Let us not create a class divide. Ibig sabihin yung A, B, C, and D, huwag sisisihin yung D and E. Bumalik tayo sa D&E kasi sinasabi nila elitista tayo. Di bumalik tayo sa komunidad, ipaliwanag na natin kasi guys, wala na namang mga bribery mangyayari until next election. Ganun naman, di ba? So ngayon pwede tayo mag-usap, ba't ba tayo naghihirap as Filipino? Ba't ba nagkaroon ng patayan? And next question is, i-allow ba natin na patuloy ang pagnanakaw, patuloy ang patayan? Wala bang isang alternatibong sosyedad na pwede tayong mapanghawakan?
Thank you. Does anyone else have something to add to that?
Yeah,
No?
I'd like to add to that. Actually, pinagtatawanan tayo ng mundo. Ang kaagad nilang ma-remember sa mga Marcos na ito ay yung Imelda na thousands of shoes. Yan talagang, maski buburahin pa nila, nariyan na yan sa Guinness Book of Record. Pwede nilang burahin sa Pilipinas, pero sa outside sa Pilipinas, yan ang unang impression nila. Oh, another Marcos? Di ba yan yung thousands of pairs of shoes na corruption nila? Yun. That's simple.
Final word. Give him a chance. Ang unang gagawin niyan, yung aking $10 billion na sabi niya hindi nila ninakaw, balik niyo dito sa amin. Now it's 30 billion because 30 years or 35 years have passed. Interest compounded, yung $10 billion na ninakaw, mga $30 billion na yun. Yun ang unang hihingiin niya sa mga gobyerno. Ako'y presidente na, balik niyo sa amin bulsa.
Yes, that's true. We are currently out of questions. Would you like me to read some of the comments that we have here, or
Yeah,
I could
please.
ask you a question? Okay. There's a lot. Thank you for your passion. I've been going through all of them trying to find a question. But a lot of people are echoing all the things that our panelists are also saying. So there's a lot of really passionate people here. Okay. I'll go back to the top. Sorry, there's a lot of questions. Okay, can I suggest that the team investigating election irregularities also get information on the number of defective machines, like for how long they did not work and in which precinct, so there can be an estimate of how many were disenfranchised and whom they would have likely voted for. Will provide more factual basis for questioning supposed results. So that is more directed to the lawyers of Lenny, I think, because they are the ones who are investigating or trying to gather evidences. So we we'll try our best to get that to Lawyers for Lenny, I guess, or maybe suggest it yourself. I think they have their own Facebook page.
There are some hands raised.
Go ahead. If anyone wants to go on camera, now would be the time. It's a little bit over 15 minutes, but I think we could. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Who is raising their hands?
Roberto Tixon.
All right. Go ahead. I'm trying to unmute you, Mr. Tixon. Go ahead.
No, I just would like to add one little thing to what Ago, Loida, Ives, and even I think the fourth lady, I forgot her name, regarding this giving Marcos a chance. Look, let's be sincere to ourselves, okay? If someone had hurt your family, someone in your family had been raped, had been killed, lumapit sa'yo yung pumatay, yung nanggahasa, bigyan mo pa ako ng another chance. Come on. I mean, I just find it so silly that they would even have the guts to ask that question to us. I mean, for them to even ask that, it really tells them that they think we are completely powerless. We are completely powerless. We don't even think for them to have the effrontery, the temerity to ask that question. I just want to emphasize that, okay?
Salamat.
Thank you, Mr. Tixon. Well, this is alarming. This is from Oriel. COMELEC is already proclaiming senators today. Will this manifesto change any of this proclamation? They might proclaim any moment now the VP and president. Do you have any reactions to that?
Yan nga punto eh. Sa Amerika, mabilis ang internet dito. But we follow accuracy, we follow the process. Mga 5 weeks yan, tapos dinagyan pa ng chance yung Arizona mag-recount. Maraming processes, di ba? Itong Pilipinas na napakabagal ng internet, isang araw, 90% nagawa nyo agad with 16 million lead. Come on, di ba? Ang bagal-bagal nyo pag may typhoon, kailangan kayo sa ground. Dapat doon kayo mabilis. Ngayon sa election, super bilis kayo. The point is, gagamitin nyo dapat yung bilis, yung technology, but guys, with high credibility. Otherwise, pag minabilis nyo yan, it looks suspicious na may tinatago kayo. Sa lahat ng mga tinapon naming question kanina, walang sagot na binibigay ang COMELEC. Even yung nga sinasabi ko sa'yo during the whole campaign, saan ka nakakita ng kandidato na hindi lumalabas para makipagdebate? He is being cuddled by the COMELEC. Kasabwat ang COMELEC, kasabwat ang social media, and eventually kasabwat rin ang Supreme Court. Ganyan kalala ngayon ang sistema, mga kapatid. Kaya kanino tayo aasa? Sa sarili natin. Kung sumama yung mga ilang politiko, so be it. Pero hindi to titibay kung walang participation ng mga tao. At bakit namin to ginagawa sa OFW? Alam naman namin nasa frontliners yung mga tao sa Pilipinas. Sinong unang papatayin? Kayo mga journalist, susunod mga abogado, susunod mga estudyante. Ang huling papatayin yung mga BBM supporters pag wala nang papatayin. Kaya kung hindi tayo kikilos, kung hindi tayo magkakaisa, iisa-isahin tayo ng isang gobyernong ito.
Thank you, Mr. Ago. I would like to call Ms. Carolina, who has her hand raised. I'm gonna ask to unmute. Go ahead, you have a question.
Sorry, because I was kind of late, but I just wanted to see. I know I shared all the sentiments that people had expressed. We all know, kumbaga yung sa Tagalog, we all know yung naturalesa ng ating kalaban, di ba? And we know what they are capable of. We're in agreement with that, but I feel like we're in sort of like a desperate time that I guess what I'm trying to find is what would be our coherent plan. How do we move forward, knowing that all their arms it's about to gag us, right? So I'm sort of like also like sort of lost, but what I would like to see, because I feel like we have a power at this moment in time as well. Given that we lost the canvassing, I know in my heart that we win the election, but I know that we lost the canvassing intentionally, right? So let's not put that in, let's not underscore that. We won the election. but the canvassing is another story. But people are ready. There are people. So let's not lose sight of like come on, people. People came out with all the Kakampink rally in all over the Philippines, right? So, but how are we taking advantage of this moment? I think I would like for us to sort of like, I would like to notch the edge a little bit more so that we could have a coherent plan in moving forward before June comes. I think more that I would like for us to see, if I could suggest, like, let's talk about strategy at this given time now. What would be our step that we're gonna take 2 weeks from now, a week from now, before they can actually really proclaim, right? We know that they destroyed all and spread all false information. Let's stop in. How are we making sure that bantay ng mga bayani, their archive will be secured? Like, I think there's like approach that we can do. Secure what we can secure as far as like the information, the legitimacy of the history that we have, so that they cannot manipulate that, right? And then let's do another step that I don't know what it is, but there is something out there, because the fact that people are like rallying, the fact that she came in New York and people went in on their own, unorganized, people unorganized went to the airport. When I'm in Chicago right now, and just like seeing it on Facebook, people went on their own in the airport to meet, you know, Vice President Leni Robredo. They went to Yankee Stadium, and I was like, dang, this is a seizing moment for us, because people are ready. They just need a direction. People just need a direction at this time. So yeah, and I feel like let's guide, let's strategize and guide what we need to do between the next coming weeks.
To be
I just
fair,
want to put that out.
this whole movement have put together all these community leaders, and we are planning to continue having these discussions. Like if anything, and we could strategize like on a weekly basis on what we could do. For now, the manifesto is a very strong statement. I don't think any other groups, as of the moment, especially outside of the Philippines, have called out COMELEC, or called out, like really like spoke out against it. So I think this is a kind of an offensive step that we are taking. And I think it's in the right direction. And actually, to piggyback off of your question, John said, Leni and Kiko's campaign spurred a massive movement for change. Do you envision a people power revolt similar to the EDSA revolution in 1986 that toppled Marcos, I think? What will it take to make this happen?
Okay.
Just
a moment, okay?
Let's give Miss Marissa, Tita. Can we give Miss Marissa?
I just have a very, you compare it to 1986, okay? This people's power happened because of the snap elections. Marcos called for snap elections. There was massive cheating. There was a lot of disenfranchisement of voters. That happened, okay? And right now, and what happened was the Cory, the head of the opposition, called for civil disobedience. And that started everything. I don't think we expect that from Leni Robredo. I don't think we expect her to call for civil disobedience. So it must come from the people, this mass movement. And I was part of EDSA. When I was in university, that was 71 and 72. These are the years of martial law. And we were on the streets every day. So it's the students now who have started. If other groups organize and join that movement, it might happen. But it will not definitely. I don't expect it probably from Leni Robredo. That's my thought.
Okay, Tita Loida, go ahead.
Yes, that's one. Also, 21 years of Marcos made the people say, tama na, husto na. We have not reached that point yet. But I'm saying we are all agonizing here. Let's not agonize, let's organize. And how do you organize? You have to decide it within your own circle of friends. There are 142 right now. First of all, get your name on this manifesto. Second, create your own tribe, your own group, and say, there will be another election in 3 years. How can we maximize our power now so that by in 3 years, it will not happen that we are clobbered. We are clobbered with forced information. We are clobbered with money. Unfortunately, nasanay ang mga tao na kailangan pagboto unless they have a very strong conviction like we have, kukunin ng pera. Sana narito si Cardinal Sin. Kunin ng pera, iboto ang konsyensya. But we didn't have that. Okay, so right now, those who are listening in here or on Facebook or whatever, organize, start organizing, create your own tribe, and start whatever you can do within your circle of friends.
Can I say something, Laura? Can I say something? Yeah. This afternoon, I got a call from a pro-Lenny Kiko supporter, a very avid one. And one of the things that she called me about was to inform me that there is a website that proliferates misinformation about Lenny, bashing Lenny. Okay, and the website's name is SMNI News. Okay, to the question or to the comment by the lady, the lady earlier, that what can we do to move forward? As Loida said, let's create our own tribe. Let's continue to be heard. Let's continue to be seen. All these people, all these supporters who are at this moment really very avid and passionate and disgusted and frustrated about the election results, let's pull them in and let's continue to talk. Let's continue to be seen. Let's continue to write. You know, use your social media, your Facebook, any disinformation that you read that's being publicized against Lenny that are untrue. It is our obligation as citizens of the Philippines to counter that. Let's counter that. And I'm sharing with you that this SMNI News is a broadcasting and media production company, apparently publishing misinformation about Lenny, and it's a pro-BBM. So take a look at that. And let's see whether we can counter any misinformation and bashing of Lenny so that we can arrive at the truth. Because our target at this time, my friends, mga kapatid ko, yung mga DNE, kasi naniniwala sila. Yes. So, you know, so moving forward, let's not be quiet. Let's continue to talk. Let's continue to be noisy. Let's be loud and express our concern and our, you know, frustration that this election was rigged.
Sorry, go ahead. Ives has his hand up. He has something to add. Thank you, Tita Recio.
Yeah, on the question of you know, nagkakaroon na ng proclamation, what are we gonna do to stop this? I think speaking, you know, as part of the overseas movement of overseas Filipinos, there's a lot of things that we can do overseas, as laid out in our manifesto, no, specifically here sa United States and sa Canada, is to demand from your government, no, to end the provision of security assistance to the Marcos and Duterte, or to the possible Marcos and Duterte regime. No, we cannot allow our tax dollars to be you know, sent to bankroll what we know as a tyrannical and despotic government. No. Number two, we must exhaust all human rights instruments available to us, such as the targeted sanctions like Magnitsky Act. We are already doing that here in the United States and in Canada and other countries. No, these are things that if the Philippine government pushes through with the proclamation of Marcos and Duterte, that these are things that we will continue to work towards. no? And of course, as mentioned earlier, we encourage our kababayans overseas and in the Philippines to organize, no? What we have seen in the past few months and years, the Marcos and Duterte dynasties are well funded and can fund a machinery, no, to create disinformation and manipulate the public. We must also be organized and we must take action, no. I agree na we must sustain a protest movement, and on our end we will continue to protest in front of the consulates. We will continue to organize within our communities until we end the Marcos and Duterte regime in the soonest time possible, no. Lastly, I have faith in our kababayans in the Philippines, no. No form.
Na-mute ka, Ives.
Ulitin ko lang, no. So I have faith in our kababayans in the Philippines that no form of disinformation can blind them from the realities of poverty and hunger, no. I do not believe that the Marcos and Duterte regime can provide solutions, no, to the massive hunger and poverty in the Philippines. In fact, they are part of the problem. Kaya may tiwala ako at pag-asa na ang mga kababayan natin sa Pilipinas ay mag-oorganisa at kikilos upang wakasan at talunin, no, ang rehimeng Marcos Duterte. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Yves. We have time for just one more question. It's almost 11 o'clock. Miss Potri has her hand up. I'll put you on camera. You're on. I asked to unmute. I'm sorry.
Good evening. Assalamualaikum, everyone. Good morning in the Philippines and good afternoon anywhere else. Actually, most of my questions has been asked. It's now that I'm rereading all the BMN, all the loyalists post of whatever LBM. There is this Nostradamus prophecy. I never read it. I never listened to it because alam ko it's nothing. But the thing is, when I ask these people, these nannies, these people who are, I presume that they are on my side and then never realize they are Marcos, but they look at TFC all the time and they listen to the news and all this. So I said, why? I thought all the while you're on my side. What happened? No, because he sent, according to Nostradamus, he's the savior, blah, blah, blah. Do you remember how Duterte won? Duterte won because the people thought he was the savior. That includes me. I'm from Mindanao. You know? So only after he bombed Marawi that I really like, oh my God, talaga mamatay tao siya.
All right.
So,
Ms.
now
Potri, I'm sorry, we have 1 minute left.
The point here
Do you have
is,
a question? Do you have any final?
No, my suggestion, Filipinos are so superstitious. In the midst of hopelessness, we pray a lot. But we also believe in all this Nostradamus thing. Now, the brother of my husband believes so much in that prophecy. So if we want people's power, it has to go through the grassroots who believe in Nostradamus that Marcos is a golden era boy and everything. We discuss with each other right now. We are preaching to the choir. But the thing is, the action that Marisa was calling is more than us. We have to go down and organize these people that we thought that are loyalists for that are loyal people, but then are so pasted in YouTube and everything, and they are so budol ang tawag yan. There's a kontrabudol actually that was created last time, and if we can kindly read that and listen to it, it is Carl Gaspar and another priest. Let's read it, and then we can use that tips so that we can talk to our own people that we thought are on our side. Ito na yung sinasabi nating laylayan. Bakit natalo tayo on that? Isa. Ikalawa, let's befriend all the computer science people, the young ones, because they're the one who can counter. And ito yung mga taong walang pakialam. Anong nangyari sa Pilipinas? Walang pakialam. So these are the young people that we have to align with. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pottery. To the panelists, someone suggested, can we extend this meeting because people would like to be heard? So can we extend it for a few more minutes?
Please, yes.
Would you like us to turn off the Facebook Live?
Yes. All right, we could turn off okay, before we turn off Facebook Live, should we just like,
Hey, go ahead, may mga nanonood eh. Let them,
yeah, we don't have to turn off Facebook Live. We could keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. All right. Tito Ago, you had something to say. Thanks, Ms. Pottery.
Miss Pottery, maganda yung punto ni Miss Pottery kanina eh. Normal sa mga taong nagugutom talaga, naghahanap sila ng liderato. Kahit kasinungalingan yan, tatanggapin nila kasi nga, wala nagsasabi sa kanila eh. Yung mga kakampiks natin nagsasabi kailan kikilos sino, si Lenny, si Kiko. Guys, pag nag-uusap tayo, dapat maging mapagkumbaba tayo at maging tapat tayo sa isa't isa. There is a vacuum of leadership among ourselves. Lahat nag-aalisan, di ba? Kaya kapag magkaroon ng vacuum of leadership at naghihintay ka sa taas, wala mangyayari. Ito mga nakikita nyo ngayon, we are not individual people. We represent organizations. A social movement is not led by individuals. It's always by organizations. Kaya kung wala kayo napupusuan, piliin nyo. USPGG, Malaya, Isang Bayan, para maraming grupo rito. But get collectivized. That's number one. Number two, sabi ko nga sa inyo, maging tapat tayo at mapagkumbaba. May pagkakamali rin tayo. Somehow, di ba? Lahat ng movement nagkamali. Tingnan natin kung saan tayo nagkamali. Sa 100 members natin, sino ba talaga yung umaayaw na sino yung gustong manatili? Kung sa 100 may 50 gustong manatili, consolidate them. Panghawakan natin. Mag-educate ulit tayo, magsama-sama ulit tayo at magpadami tayo. Ikatlo, yung pag-aaral natin dire-diretso, tapos call to action. No? Ang mga taong alipin na hindi gumagalaw, hindi nila nararamdaman yung kadena nila. Kasi hindi sila gumagalaw. Pero yung mga taong aktibo, may call to action, nagpo-protesta, ito yung mas malinaw ang tao at nagbibigay ng paliwanag. Sabi ko kanina, ang intensyon ng gobyernong ito, alisan ng pag-asa ang tao. Ang gawain natin bilang aktivista, bilang human rights workers, bigyan uli ng pangarap ang mga tao. Bigyan uli sila ng alternatibong buhay. Bigyan uli sila ng vision na pwedeng itatag ang isang lipunan na walang patayan, walang nakawan, walang misogyny, walang bastusan. Pwede mangyari ang isang lipunan. Nasa Amerika tayo, nasa Europe, alam natin yan, di ba? Dito normal na magkaroon ng medical benefits. Dito normal na may representation ka sa korte. Kung single mom ka, may benefits ka. Lahat yan normal dito. Bakit pagdating sa Pilipinas, ipaglalaban pa natin? So pag nakita na natin na may isa palang dissenting pamahalaan at dissenting gobyerno, posible naman pala sa Pilipinas. Ang tanging hadlang si Marcos at Duterte. Kaya habang hindi natin pinapatalsik yung mga kurakot na yan, hindi magkakaroon ng katahimikan ang Pilipinas. At saan manggagaling ang lakas? Sa ating lahat, sa mga tao sa baba. So again, sinasabi ko sa inyo, nakikita nyo ngayon, we represent organizations. We are not individuals. The more we get collectivized, the more we can create collectivized efforts to bring up democracy back in the Philippines.
Yes, I think that we reached the time we have today. If our speakers have one last word or they want to put in to conclude our press conference, now is the time. Yves, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you ulit for the media who attended today's press conference. Thank you to the other speakers here with me and to all the 109 and growing signatories of our manifesto. On behalf of the Malaya Movement USA, we reiterate our message to the opposition to not concede. We reiterate our call to our kababayans that let us get organized, let's unite and reject the Marcos Duterte regime. They will only bring more misery and suffering to our people. Kaya tayo na't lumaban, tumindig at ituloy natin ang laban. Inuulit namin ang aming panawagan sa COMELEC to initiate a manual recount the votes, no, so that we can ensure that there is credibility. We call on our governments, both in the US and Canada, to end security assistance to the Philippines until the human rights situation has improved. No, so para sa amin sa Malaya, tuloy-tuloy po ang laban natin. At sabi nga kanina, nasa kamay na ng taong bayan kung paano natin itatama ang what we believe is a disastrous election na nangyari nitong May. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you,
Tuloy
Yves.
ang laban.
Yay. Anyone else from our panel? Want to say
Tuloy ang laban.
Ituloy ang laban. Tama. Attorney Loida?
Well, I said it already, and you have repeated it and many others. Do not agonize. Organize. Organize within your own circle of friends what you can do. Organize. Wag matulog.
And perhaps, Loida, this group can meet, every so often and give feedbacks so that we know how we are growing, how the movement is moving, and perhaps, we can share inputs and insights on what's going on among our respective tribes.
Between, do you have all of our emails?
Yves would have the emails po of everyone who signed up.
Okay, good.
Actually, there had been all US coordination calls going almost week to week or every other week. Yves and I have been part of that group. Some people who are in the audience are also part of that group. So if we have all your emails, if you'd like to include your organization, email us. Let us know that you'd like to be included in our future Zoom meets.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yes, Laura. I think it's about time for all of us to be joining you with the US and Canada together with this information and the fight for this democracy. We have to fight. Stop disinformation too. Thank you.
Yeah. We need to have a unified plan, so that we're all moving together consistently.
Yes, so that's what I said. Well, one of the most beautiful things that came out of this is that it brought people together.
Yeah.
This would not have been possible in any other election, or not would have been something that people would be prioritizing. But because we are the David in a David and Goliath scenario, we are mobilizing. We are all proactive, and we just hope that a lot more people will join us. So to conclude, this manifesto has been signed by 109 individuals and organizations across North America, and it's still growing. A lot of people in this group also have been signing as the press conference was going on. We are all united in fighting for democracy to survive in the Philippines. Remember, every movement that's grown into a revolution started with a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens looking to change the world for the better. If we simply accept these dubious election results without questioning its validity and integrity, we are basically handing over our democracy to the spawns of dictators in a silver platter. And we freedom-loving Filipinos will not back down on this fight for truth and justice for our beloved Philippines. To the members of the press who are here with us, thank you again for being here tonight. And for everyone else who joined our meeting. Again, I'm Laura Nicolas Olaez from Young Global Filipinos for Lenny Kiko. It's been a pleasure serving as your moderator, not monitor. Good night, or have a great day.
Thank you to be in. Thank you.